Hey guys, Space Marine 658 here. Today we're going to be covering how to make required quests actually block quests being added. And then we're going to cover a little bit of the UI if we have time afterwards. It should be pretty quick to get the required quests, but just in case we're going to start with that. So, first off, if you come back to your quest tracker, here in the add quest section, what we're going to want to do is we're going to add a check here. Last time we left off, we added all of these bits to actually add the quest. What we want to do to actually check if it can be added is we're going to create a couple of functions here. Now the first one we're going to create, just because it's going to go in place there, is going to be required quests completed. And we're going to have an output of can add quest. Now we'll go ahead and hit compile and come back here and just drag that in. We're just doing it now for now because we're going to want to make sure this is all set up from this side. So as long as it's true, it'll go ahead and add those quests. Otherwise, it won't yet add them. Now, depending on how you want to do this, you could also have some stuff backed up where maybe you do add it to the available quests, but you skip adding it as active. And maybe you can't make it active until the other required quests are completed. In doing that, you do give your players a little bit more flexibility of like, hey, here's this quest you could do, but you can't complete it until you do this other quest. But for now, I'm going to focus more on doing it as sort of like a unlock thing. You got to complete quests 1 and 2 to then get quest 3, rather than 1 then getting 3. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to also want to pass in the actual new quest. So we'll just go ahead and hit this here and just make this a quest structure. And just pass in that new quest, and we'll just call it quest to add. All right. Now that we've got that quest, right, now what we're going to want to do is break here and actually, see what are our required quests. Now to get our required quests, we need to do a loop, right? We need to get all this information. But if we are looping too much, what ends up happening is we're going to, eat up a lot of performance, right? Can be a very expensive thing. While we're only triggering this, one thing at a time, we're adding 1, maybe 2, 3 quests. It's not the most expensive thing in the world. What's going to end up happening is if you do it the inefficient way, you'd have to have another for loop. So you'd be running over all of the quests completed, looking to compare those to the required quests. That can get really, really expensive. So what we're going to do is do something a little bit differently. We're going to actually try and set up a function here to help us find that quest. So what we're going to do is do a completed quests and pull off of here. Now to find a quest, we need to actually make a quest structure, right? And we don't necessarily know, the entirety of the quest structure. We just know the UUID tag, right? So the question then comes in, how do we actually fill out this information? Well, one thing we can do to kind of optimize this inside of here is we're going to make a function, and we'll just call this find completed quest. And we're going to pass into it a single gameplay tag. And we'll call this quest ID. And then on our return, what we're going to want to have is found, and it's just be a true or false. So did we find this quest as completed? Now what we can do is we can grab our completed quests, get our completed quests, and now we are still doing a for loop, right? It's in a function. So the question is, is there a simpler way we can do this? Rather than doing a for loop here and finding the completed quest, is there a way we can replace this or make something that takes that place? Well, what we can do is when we go to do the quests completed, we're going in here and we're adding that quest if it's linked, but then before that we're removing the active. But we actually add our completed quests here. Well, what we can actually do is we also set a recently completed quest. What we can do is we can have a gameplay tag container right here. And we'll just call this completed quests tags. And the cool thing about doing this is that this will make it significantly easier for us when it comes to a couple of things. So if we go add gameplay tag, this makes it easier for searching, because if we just grab the active quest, do a break, grab the UUID tag, and hide. When we're saving and loading and doing things like that, we can use the actual completed quest tag bit to actually handle searching for those completed tags and saving those rather than needing to recreate them every time. We just have the default ones that exist and just mark, hey, these have been completed or not. Right now, the reason why we're still having an array of the quest structs is so that we can store that information in a place that's easy to access for UI elements. So we can pull all that information, and display it in a pretty way. But when it comes to actually searching to make things faster, we're going to use these completed quest tags. And all we have to do is then go has tag, and we'll do an exact match, and then just return if it's found. And by putting that into a function, it just makes it easier for you to just drag it in. And you can actually make this a pure function. If you make this a pure function, it's pretty dang simple. So all you do is plug into here. You go and say this. And so what this is going to do is going to say, is this required quest in the completed quests? And then what you can do is you can have a branch. And if so, and basically because we're going to be looping through each and every single required quest, what we're going to do is have a local variable, and it's going to be a Boolean. And this local variable is just going to be all required quests completed. And by default, it's actually going to be true. So they're going to come in here and it's going to be true. And then what's going to happen is if we ever find one that isn't found, so there's ever a quest that's required that's not found in our completed quests, that's when we're going to set this to false. And once we've actually, found that something's not been completed, in theory, we could make this a for each loop with break. Normally your required quests are only going to be like 2 or 3, so I don't think that's actually going to save you that much computational time. And so I think this is a better method of just, all right, are they all completed? If it gets through this whole thing without finding any that aren't completed, then it'll return true. Now, one more thing we can actually do though is there's one additional layer of optimization we can do with this function, in that what happens if a gameplay tag container has no required, right? So we can just straight bypass this. We don't need to worry about going, it's not really going to go through the for loop. It basically, from my understanding, is it's going to go to the for loop, realize it's empty, and auto skip it and go through here. But if you are ever uncertain, or if you ever want to have like other ways to check it, so if it's like less than a certain amount of required quests, do things a little bit differently, you can just do the length of the array. So you can just do like a branch and say if this is greater than 0, go ahead and go through the for loop. Otherwise, just return that you can add the quest. I like to do it like this because there is some amount of complexity even just going into a for each loop. Even if it's empty, it's still minor, but it just adds that little bit of error handling as well. So if you find that you're hitting a branch here and getting false when you should be getting true or something, then it tells you that quest might be missing the required quests. All right. So that will happen when you go to add quests. So that should be pretty much good to go then. Because as we know, we've got that starting quest all set up. So if we go here go back to our first person character. We have no active quests, but we have an available quest. Oh, that's right, it's empty. Which actually, I think we can go ahead and delete this now. So when we go ahead and start up, we're going to get quest 1. Go ahead and grab that, and we'll get quest 2. Now, if we go into our instance, I'm sorry, whoops, clicked the wrong thing. So we go into our instance, right, and we are quest level 1. Let's add a third quest right here. As you can see, we have all of these different things that are linked and required. So what we can do is actually add our linked quest here. So let's go and add a third quest. So let me actually go ahead and hit edit, project settings, gameplay tags, manage gameplay tags, quest. So for level 1, we're going to add a quest 3. And now what we can actually do here is link the quest 3 here. But as you can tell, once we set it all up, it should not allow us to start it. Not until at least quests 1 and 2 are complete. Actually, whoops, I said required to quest 2. Where's our linked quest? There we go. And quest 3. All right. So if we go in here, we'll call this quest 3. And let's do this. It shouldn't. Let's grab a random texture. Quest 3. Required. This requires 1 and 2. And there we go. No more. So what should happen is when we complete quest 1, it's going to try and add quests 2 and quests 3. Quest 2 will successfully be added because we already have quest 1 and that is completed. But quest 3 should not be added because we don't yet have that one ready. So let me actually go to first. There we go. Let's hit play. I'll do a person character. All right. So go ahead and go down to our quest tracker. As you can see, we've gotten our first quest. So let's go here and boop. As you can see, we've completed quest 1 and been given quest 2. So let me alt tab and click over here again. So you can see we were added quest 2, but not quest 3 because it's not quite ready yet. We don't have that available to be added. And it also set quest 2 as default. And you see here our starting quests, it added that quest 1. But yeah. So that is pretty much it for the required quests. Of course, you'll want to make sure that, the designers that are working on this, whether it's yourself as an indie dev or someone professional, is actually, paying attention to what quests are linked to what. The cool thing is it's very simple and easy to see from that actual area. So let's actually talk about the widgets in our quest system. We're going to go ahead and create a folder here. Let's call this widgets. There's going to be a couple. Right, so we're going to need a widget for the actual quest item itself. We're going to need some widgets for the quest page, and then probably need some widgets for buttons and stuff. Now, Common UI is a great thing to use here, but I have some tutorials on it that cover Common UI in general, and most things that we're going to do here can also be done in Common UI. So there's no worry about any kind of weirdness there. So we're just going to focus on using regular old UMG for now. But just be aware that you could probably make this in Common UI very simply. And it's going to work the same way as you make it here. So we're going to create a user widget, and this is going to be our quest log. And we'll just keep this very simple. For our quest log, we'll just have a canvas panel. Now you do want to be careful. We're only going to have a canvas panel for our main quest log because it is a solitary UI element that is by itself. You don't want to have a canvas panel on every single element on the screen because that's how you end up with some pretty heavy overhead. It's extremely bad for performance to have that many canvas panels. We're just going to have the one. What we'll do is we'll add a border. We'll have a fill. I'll probably put like a gap around it, but for now we'll do this. Yeah, we'll make like a 10 gap maybe. Put it centered up like that. 0 padding. And then let's give it like a tint of like slightly darker gray and a little bit of alpha so we can see through it just a little bit. I'm gonna say maybe 0.5 transparency, maybe slightly darker. All right, now to actually get, our quests in here, we're probably gonna wanna have a couple of things. We'll drag text in here just to hold a spot. This is just gonna be like the name of the UI element quest log. And then we'll wrap this with, we're probably gonna want quest log at the top, all of the quest items in some kind of scroll box at the bottom, and then maybe some like confirm or deny buttons at the bottom or something like that, or some kind of UI elements to interact with it, to filter it maybe. So we'll do a horizontal box here as the main wrapper, and we'll actually wrap this with a vertical box. No, sorry. We'll wrap this horizontal box with a vertical box. And we're gonna set these to fill. This one I'm gonna leave like this, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a button in here as well to close this down. And we'll wrap this button with a size box. We'll do a manual width and height override. Technically you should probably do a minimum and maximum just so that way it scales better for certain screens. But we'll say a width of what, 128? No, maybe. No, it's like an exit button. So actually we'll do 64 by 64. And then we'll do like a spacer between these. Now this is one of the benefits of Common UI is that things like text can be made into reusable components. So essentially you can say all of my title text, I want to be 72 pixels. I want them to be this font and this color. We're not doing that here today just because we're doing things quick and loose, but that's definitely something I would recommend is looking into using Common UI if you aren't already. Now, as you can see here, this looks a little funky even though we have that size box, and it's just mostly because the size box is set to fill. If you set it like this, maybe like left align or right align and vertical alignment in the center, that'll make it actually match the correct size. So long as the box it's in, I think, is bigger than it. If it's smaller, I think it can sometimes still squish if you don't have it set up right. But we should be good. All right. So now we have our horizontal box here for all of that. Now for our vertical box, we're going to need to add a scroll box because we're going to dynamically add our quests that are available into here. So let's go ahead and set this to fill. And we're going to give it a slight padding of like 10 to kind of give it some spacing around it. Now, what you want to do is you probably want to have this all done dynamically, which means that we need to, rather than having one big scroll box with all our quests in it, which can be pretty ugly, you can do it. It's kind of the Skyrim method where you just keep scrolling. I think they do split them up so that way they're like in drop down. It's been a while since I played it, but it's quite long. So what we're going to do to make this a little bit easier on the eyes is we're going to actually create a component, another widget that is going to be our quests that are under a certain category. So what we'll do is we'll create a widget blueprint. It's another user widget, and we'll call this widget blueprint underscore quest collection. And what this is going to be is it's going to be a scroll box but it's going to also be a scroll box wrapped by a vertical box. And then we're going to have text in there as well. So the text, this is going to be the one that we're going to set up. This is going to be the name of the category. And then below it is going to be the actual items themselves. So we'll click this and we'll call it SB, which is scrollbox underscore quests. And this text, we're also going to make a variable and we're going to call this title. And let's go here. And then what we're going to do is actually on construct, we're going to give the title a name. So we'll get title set text. And you want to make sure that you select the widget text, this style, because this will actually update the UI. If you select the other set text, for some reason, I don't know why they named the content the same, this doesn't guarantee that you actually update it. This actually invalidates the UI and forces it to update to the new text. We're also going to promote this to a variable, and we'll just leave it as in text. Actually, no, we'll call it title text because that's a little more clear. Title text. And we're going to expose this on spawn and make it instance editable. That way we can edit that. And then what we're going to do is we're also going to have one more variable, and that's going to be our quests. And we're going to make this of type s underscore quests. And this is going to be an array. So what's going to happen is we're going to get all the quests for this category, this quest collection. And then for each of these, we're going to create a quest element underneath the scroll box. Now what that's going to do is that's going to fill this area with all of our different quests, right? Well, to actually do that, we need to have another widget, one more widget. This should be our last widget, I believe, for today at least. We'll call this widget blueprint underscore in quest line. That might be a little confusing with actual quest lines, which are sort of how our linked quests are working. We'll call this quest item. Because an item in an array. And then this will be a horizontal box. This thing gonna wrap around a couple of things. So to make sure we get everything we want covered, we're gonna have a variable here. There's just a single quest. Make that instance editable, expose on spawn, and we'll just call this quest. We'll grab this and break it here. So we've got a couple things, right? We've got an image. This we'll worry about when we actually have players click on the quest, because that's something we're going to cover. That'll probably have to be a separate video just because this video has been going on for a while. But we'll cover showing an image when players click on a quest. But some of this other stuff we're going to want to show, right? So we'll go ahead and we're going to need name, description, these objectives we can show when they click on it or hover over it, either way. And then, yeah, I'm not worried about the status right now because we're going to save that for later. So yeah, so I'd say for now, we're just going to worry about the name and description. We can always, edit this later, maybe just make it just the name. That might be something that makes sense as well. In which case you probably just have this be a text thing that gets plopped into the item there. But let's do this. It's going to be quest name. And then we'll just do, since we're going to do the hover over where it shows the, the quest information, I'm not going to add the description here. So we're just going to do the quest name. So this is a little complicated for just a quest name, but I think it is important to kind of show how this all works, and having it separated out like this allows you a little bit more flexibility. If you decide to change the design in the future, having it be a separate piece just makes it that much easier to actually change. But yeah, so we'll pass in the quest name. And there we go. So that's going to give us this here. And so what we do is for our quests, for each and every single quest we have, we're going to need to make, our actual quest items here. So this is a quest collection. So it's going to be for all completed quests essentially. So what we'll do is we'll just grab for every single quest we have, we're going to create a widget, create widget, and we're going to select our quest item. And we're going to plug it in there. And then for our scroll box, we're going to get that and we're going to add child. Now what you want to do is, if you are in Common UI or just in general, this is good practice, is you're going to want to actually call a clear on this SB quests. The reason for this is if you rebuild this like UI, it'll clear out all the children and refresh it. If you don't clear and you call rebuild, like let's say a player completes a quest while they have the UI open and you call a rebuild, what'll end up happening is you'll have duplicates. So by calling it clear at the beginning, you're basically resetting the state of this actual quest collection. But yeah, we'll go ahead and add the child here. So that means for every single quest we have, we're going to add a child under this quest collection. Now for our quest log in our scroll box, we're going to want to create a quest collection for each and every different collection we have. So upon construction, let's actually go back here and make this a variable, and this is going to be our scroll box quest log. And let's go ahead and grab it here. And we're going to do basically the same thing. We're going to create widget. And we're going to grab our quest collection. And what we're going to want to do is add child here. Now, the thing we're going to want to also do is clear children. Now we're going to want one of these for each and every type of quest collection, right? So just thinking about this, logically, right? We're going to want to get our player pawn. And we're going to want to get component by class and get our quest tracker. Now what's going to happen is, so we've got our quest tracker, right? And so we're going to say, we're going to want to get our available quests, get our completed quests, and then get our active quest. Now, for now, I'm just going to have the active quest be as part of this collection. But eventually what we'll want to do is, make sure we expose that on spawn. Eventually what we're going to want to do is probably have that be like a separate UI element that looks a little bit different. Maybe it's at the top and maybe it doesn't need a title or other than just maybe active or current. Or you could include it, leave it inside of the collection and just have like an icon show up if it's the active quest. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. It's just up to you. So, but for now I'm going to do it this way. So we're going to do a for loop. And we'll just do like this because it's going to be 0 through 2 because 0, 1, 2. So for the first one, actually it might be easier rather than doing a for loop. Yeah, because we only have like 3 things. If we were doing it a little bit more dynamically, I think a for loop makes more sense. But since we're just doing it like this, what we're going to do is let's hit right click and hit refresh node since we made that thing available. And we're going to add 3 of these. So these are our 3 quest collections. And then we're going to also make sure we add these as children. And we got to duplicate this one for each. All right. So now all of these are being added as children. Now we need to give them actual text, right? Oh yeah, sorry, I need to make these target this. So if we go ahead and grab these, our first one, I'd say our active wants to be on top, right? That's going to be our uppermost. So we'll just make an array and plug that in here. And then next we'll have our available quests, because that's the next most important, and then completed quests, right? And we'll title this active. And then available. And then completed. Refresh. All right. So what this should do is upon construction, it's going to go and grab from our player and basically go through and add all of these to the quest log. So one thing we're going to do here is on this, just so that we can close this out real quick, just on released, we'll just call remove from parent. And there we go. All right. So let's go to our first person character. And we're going to set up a button. For now, I'm just going to make it the Q button. So Q key. You can use the debug, but for now, I'll just use the actual Q key. And when it's released, we're going to add widget. Oh, sorry. Create widget. This is going to be our base quest log. And we're going to add it to viewport. And what we're going to also do is probably just to make this a little bit easier, is we're going to set input mode UI only. Take this in widget to focus, and then get the player controller, I believe, and it's set mouse cursor. Cursor is it not the controller? It's set mouse cursor. Set show mouse cursor. No, it's player controller. Okay, I guess. Oh, it's just show, not set. So okay, whichever. But yeah, so we'll have it show here, and then what we'll do is we'll basically grab. I guess we only need these two, and we'll do the opposite when we close the quest log here. So we'll say hide the mouse cursor, and we'll also say set input game. You can use that game in UI or game only. Either way works. That should function either way. All right, so let's go ahead and start. So as you can see, if we hit Q, we have the completed, available, quest 1, active, quest 1. So you can see, actually, interestingly, it seems to be doing it. Did I order those wrong? It's valid player controller. Oh, do we not actually have our player controller set? Let's see here. I have a player controller set, so it's weird that it's giving me a... Oh, yep. So if we go here, we need to pass in the player controller into the set UI mode. I did that for the quest log, but I didn't do it for the actual player themselves. But yeah, so in the quest log, it looks like it's actually adding them from the top. So in theory, you probably want to flip these then. I usually do it a little bit more dynamically, so I'm actually manually going in and editing these. Versus normally I would have like a for loop or something running these, but this should work. That should flip those around. Huh. Oh. And I did it again. So I flipped these, but I didn't actually flip what order they're being added in. So if we just clear these targets and then go back here. Why is that? Oh, yeah. So I'm clearing the target and I contact. Sorry, today has been a long day at work. So you can guess I am making a couple mistakes here. There's some content here. There we go. All right. Let's go ahead and hit play. There we go. So active quest 1, available quest 1. As you can see, and you probably would want to hide if they're active, from the available. But now we have completed quest 1, active quest 2, available quest 2. But yeah, so that's it for today. Next time we'll clean it up a little more, make it look a little nicer. We're also going to be actually diving into setting quests as active versus not active, as well as probably looking at a couple other UI things for like filtering and things like that. But if you like the video, make sure to leave a like down below. That definitely helps the channel out. I know I got to do the normal YouTuber thing. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. This channel has been growing quite a bit. I see a lot of you have been subscribing, so I'm always glad to have you all on board. But that is it for me today. Good luck and good hunting.